So a couple years back, my wife and we had 6 kids with us, and we decided to go to the Nevada Day Parade in Carson. We get to our spot, we get all the kids some donuts. A couple minutes go by, and we're just sitting there looking around and realize, uh-oh, we're down a child. And so I just remember running up the parade route frantically looking for this tiny child that was entrusted to me by the government, essentially, and I've lost her. And eventually get back, find her, and she had wanted another donut, so she snuck off and ended up getting some hot chocolate from some strangers, and she was content. But I know people look at that and they're just like, you guys live in such chaos, and who would choose that? And we did. And there's a reason for choosing it, and it's a good reason. That reason, I guess, started 17 years ago when I was a freshman in high school. Things are great. You know, you come home to a home-cooked meal every day that you didn't have to plan. You see your friends every day. Like, nothing was bad about my life other than my dad was dying of cancer. You never expect it when it finally does come, but I just remember coming home from school, I just finished up baseball practice, was ready to take a shower and go to youth group, and I get home and find out that hospice is there. And tonight was gonna be the night that he dies. And sure enough, didn't make it through the night. It was just like my mom had said. And I just remember being next to him, and nothing prepares you for that. And the next morning, waking up, just being numb to, like, what is next, you know? Like, there's just this feeling of, where do I go from here? We always think about the stereotype of kids getting hurt when dad's watching, and I think that there's a purpose to that. You know, dad always wants to push the kid forward or let them experience stuff, take risks. I just didn't have that anymore. And as a teenager, that was really tough. There wasn't really anyone that stepped up around me to kind of guide me through that. And I was missing that all the way up through college. It wasn't until I was in school that I met a younger man who kind of stepped into a fatherly role for me, not necessarily being like a dad in all respect, but he learned my story and understood, and then he didn't let me wallow in my own victimhood. I had always used the death of my father as a scapegoat for when stuff wasn't going right. I could always draw back to my dad died, and that's why bad things happened, or I didn't get it done, or excuse for poor behavior. And this guy he did not let me make that excuse. So while the time I spent with this mentor of mine was short, it had a significant impact in my life. It revitalized all these memories of my father, and the most important thing about him, which was that he was always directing me to Jesus. While I no longer had an earthly father, I had a father in heaven. And while he might not be teaching me how to frame a wall or swing a hammer, he's teaching me how to, through his word, be a good friend, a good father, a good husband, and also just empowering me to not wallow in my past sufferings, but just understanding that those sufferings are going to produce character and endurance, and in the end, hope. And hope isn't going to put me to shame. I can relate to the feelings of these kids when they come into care, just the feelings of uncertainty, the fear, the anger, the sadness, just because I have my own lived experience of that. And through that experience, I gained wisdom, and that wisdom being that the ultimate healing only comes through Jesus Christ. Everyone and everything in the system is going to tell kids when they come into care that they are a victim, which they absolutely are. They didn't bring this on themselves. But they will hear it so much that it can become a part of their identity, and that I don't want for any kid. I saw myself as a victim for so many years. I let it control me, control my behavior, define me. And my desire here is to not point these kids to that victimhood or to their situation, but to just take them and turn them outwards to face the world and just be there by their side and be their support. And again, point them to Jesus in any way that I can. And there are times when it's hard to have kids in your house. There's confrontation, there's tantrums, there's thousands of diapers to change, sleepless nights, going from point A to point B. But in the end, doing all that is worth it. If I have a chance, whether it's a year or a week, to be a father to a kid in care, I'm going to take that opportunity. It might be the only time that they see a husband and a wife loving each other. It might be the only time they have a loving authority in their house where they see actual apologies and repentance to one another. It might be the only time that they've stepped in a church or heard someone pray or heard the gospel.